Lekker Brentie. Quarterfinals done and dusted.
Timo, yes. What a round of rugby.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We spoke a bit before the podcast, and we have a lot to say.
Yes.
So I think without really overhyping our opinions, let's jump straight into it.
Yeah, it was an interesting round. I mean, there was games that I thought would excite me a bit more or be more nail biting, which were rubbish games, and there was games that I thought were going to be rubbish games that were very, very nail biting. But overall, what a very good quarterfinal. So we'll start with the kickoff of the first game, which is Glasgow Warriors versus the DHL Stormers. Now, I know the Stormers are your team, but for me, this is by far one of the worst performances this season for the Stormers. And they started off well. The first 5 minutes, the defense, it felt like they were actually, doing something or had intent. But their defense was just unbelievably bad. So I think they had like 40 missed tackles or something. 40 missed tackles. The defense was very, very bad. I mean, they spent most of the second half in the Glasgow 22 and just got nothing to show for it. Getting penalty after penalty, but not capitalizing. I mean, if you look at the stats, and I'll put it up, they had 53% of the possession, but still lost 36-18. They were in it or not in it. They had opportunities and they just were not capitalizing on it. And I know that we spoke and actually agree with what you have to say about why that didn't work for them.
Yeah, look, if I'm gonna break it down, and looking at the Glasgow Warriors, it was a unit. It was a team effort. It was that consistent. It was everything was just interlinking. Okay,
yeah.
I'm looking at a guy like Tom Jordan. Tom Jordan, all of a sudden, a huge, stocky fly off, and he runs like he's a winger. I'm looking at the two Kyles, the wingers, Kyle Stein, Kyle Rowe, had phenomenal games. Sione Tuipulotu had a phenomenal game. You're looking at all of that. You look at Renko Venter. He was just a pillar, in that scrum. And then I move over. I'm looking at the Stormers side, and this is what we kind of discussed before this. Salman Murat, went off, can't really judge him for that. JD Schikkerling came on, and JD Schikkerling was a machine. And we discussed that in our build up to this weekend's quarterfinal. JD Schikkerling, underrated player, not getting enough game time, and whatnot. He came on and he took the opportunity. He did the team game. He was there on the defensive section of it, and whatnot. And then everything fell apart. When Marnie had to come on, when Dan du Plessis went off, and then it became the Sasha show. So unfortunately, in my honest opinion, and the Stormers lost the game because of Sasha Feinberg and Gomozulu's individuality. He never passed. He was constantly trying. He probably had about on the handling errors, probably about 50% of the handling errors was purely his. Ben Loader looked like he hadn't played in rugby in about 7 months. And if Suleiman Hartzenberg touched the ball twice in that game, it was a lot. Warwick Geland never got the ball. And then on top of that, Evan Roos. I think Evan Roos, although when he took the ball, he gained meters, but there was a lot of times he didn't need to take the ball, just secure the ball, let the ball go out wide, and do what you need to do. Mani Leboeck looked pretty good when he came on, under the pressure circumstances and whatnot, and he did what a typical, attacking fly-off does. He passed it to Sasha Feinberg and Gomozulu, who apparently thinks that he's the only person that is on the Stormers side, and it was disgusting. What Sasha needs to remember, and what a guy like Johan Roos needs to remember, if you go look at Rassi's setup and the core setup of the Springbok side, it is very team based. It is not individual. There are moments of individual brilliance, like Jason Colby step here or there and whatnot. But 99% of the Springboks game plan is based on a team play, the ball going through the hands. Every player has an idea what they're doing. Sasha Fynbok and Gomezula, I don't know if it was a brain fart. I don't know if he feels pressurized that he needs to do something phenomenal now or whatever. But in my opinion, young players, so let's call it an error in judgment. But it was a disgusting error in judgment, You mentioned the stats. I'm quickly going to run through that. I don't want to hop on this game because it is a bit of an emotional game for me. Handling errors, we had double the handling errors that Glasgow had. Okay, passes, we made the same passes, but the same amount of passes. We made 3 more, in fact, and we would have probably been on about 175 passes if Sasha actually knew how to pass the ball. It was like he didn't want Hartzenberg to get the ball. Meters gained, we made half the meters they did
100%
with more ball possession. Okay, clean breaks is where they nailed us. Clean breaks is where they massacred us. Kicks from hand, they had much better tactical kicking. They made more tackles. They missed less tackles. We had mauls. Okay, we had the yellow card. That was really unfortunate because I don't feel that he was in an offside position. What he got the card for. So that for me was debatable. And in all fairness, the period that Senatla was off the field is when Glasgow scored 2 quick tries. And penalties conceded. I mean, you look at that. Glasgow conceded 17 penalties. And we didn't capitalize on that.
But that just emphasized what I was saying. I mean, how many? That's 17 opportunities to do something, which the Stormers didn't. And I think what you're saying with Sasha is correct. Look, very, how I feel about Sasha, and I see a lot of people are saying that maybe he crumbled under pressure because it's a big game moment. But I mean, he's played big games before for the Springboks. He was playing against Ireland and he was playing against the All Blacks. But good players have bad games. But I think what happened here is there was a sort of a feeling that the Stormers were going to do something. They didn't have the best position in the log. They went away to the previous URC champions, and it was just this feeling that the Stormers were going to show us, or show the world what we already know, that they can beat any team at any given day. And I think maybe that went a bit to head for Sasha, and he probably thought that that burden was on the way on him, and he just played a bit too much rugby, and he just tried to do too many things. Kicking the ball away for no reasons. Just a bunch of silly errors that ultimately the one guy, your conductor of the team, is the one guy that you really don't want to be making those stupid little errors. But Glasgow looked very good. They were dominating. They were very physical. A guy like Rory Dodge, who's been snubbed for the British and Irish Lions players. No fault at Andy Farrell. It is a very highly contested position for them. He looked phenomenal. And I know we're going to get to the other games now, but based on this weekend's performance, if between all 60 teams that played. Or all 80 teams that played, I think Glasgow Warriors are I know you can't base it on one weekend's performance, but they are looking the best out of the 8, or out of the 4 that are left now, They really, like you said, they really showed us how well they can play, and they were coming off a few losses. I think out of the 5 previous games, they only won 1. They had a bad luck. They had to play Leinster twice in those 5 games, and they were just not firing shots. They weren't looking like the previous URC champions. And the Stormers, on the other hand, were looking brilliant. They obviously had a dismal season, and it almost felt like they were starting to get back to the URC champs that they were. In that form, and it just didn't happen for them.
Yeah, I also have to. I just I want to reiterate this. saying that Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, pressure play and stuff. He was in Bishops. Okay, their rivals are literally South African teams like Paul Jim and Paul Ruiz. Okay, he comes from a proper rugby school that was there, and they've gone out as a proper rugby school, so that can't be it. Then you go and you look at he's played on junior level for the Springboks. Okay, he's played for South Africa in the Springbok. He's played for the Western Province. He's played for the Stormers. There's no excuse for somebody of his caliber. And in all fairness, just for Western Province in the Stormers, he's a 42 cap veteran. He's got 42 caps. There's no excuse for what he did on this weekend. I feel it was discouraging, and I maintain this. I don't think that he is the right player to play.
I was just about to ask
play
you,
the number 10, to take over the number 10 jersey from a commander that we have in somebody like Andre Pollard, and that is worrying for me because I know we've bashed Jordan Hendrickson, and I think he is the guy to take over and whatnot. I feel that you've still got somebody like a Damian Willems who still has the potential to also take that number 10 jersey. I wouldn't write Mani off. Mani, just if you're gonna play Mani as your number 10, you need to then play somebody like a Dan Kriel or somebody that can kick that goal, because Mani is not gonna be a guy that is going to slot 100% in a World Cup final or whatever. But I think we need to move on. On from this. The Stormers deservedly lost. To be brutally honest, Sasha Feinberg.
Sasha is not your number 10 for the Springboks anymore. Before we move on,
I
was going to ask you that.
To be honest with you, too much individuality. I think there's too much individuality with him. He showed it this weekend, and I honestly feel that would Sasha have gone off earlier in that match if there wasn't injuries with Dan du Plessis and Mani came on, I actually feel that we would have probably been in a better position to win that match.
Yeah. To me, I still think he is. I think he's still a very young player, and he's all of these bad games is a learning curve for him. If I was Rassi, I would still start him. I know what you're saying about Jordan Hendrickson. He's had a few bad games, but he's also a brilliant player, and we know what he can do. He's my bench. He comes off the bench for me because of his versatility. Because he can play 15. He can play center. You can slot that guy into the wing if you really want to. You know what I'm saying? I think the only position in the background that he probably won't play as the position his brother plays, which we'll get to later, Jaden Hendrickson, number 9. But to me, I would still start Sasha. I think Sasha is a once in a lifetime talent. He had a few brain fart moments. He had a very bad game. It did cost him the URC run. Not just him. He was a very big contributor to that. He wasn't the only one that played bad. But he's still my number 10 for the Springboks.
Yeah. Look, moving on. Bulls Edinburgh. I'll kick this off. This was probably for me the most evenly contested match of the weekend. You look, handling errors was 9-7, passes 129 to 118, offloads 13 to 10, meters gained there was literally 10 meters difference between the two. Clean breaks, there was 1 between the two of them. Kicks from hand 29 versus 26. Tackles made 83 to 97. The Bulls did miss more tackles. The Mauls were 4-5. Yellow cards 2-1, and the penalties conceded 10-10. So it was obviously this was obviously a game of discipline. It was a game where I feel that like I said, the Bulls at Loftus was always going to be a hard task, and that would have been a hard task for any team. It wasn't going to be an easy task for anything. I do not feel that in the bigger picture of the Bulls rugby that anybody stood out for me. to this extent of where we didn't expect it from them. So
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but the Bulls did each player did exactly what we ended up expecting from them. So well done to the Bulls. Obviously, this coming weekend, also the African semi-final at Loftus. So going into that, I feel that this was a good stepping stone for the Bulls to go into.
Yeah.
I feel they're going into that semi-final a lot more relaxed. To the extent as compared to the Sharks, for example, who we will get to in a bit. But well done to the Bulls. It was a rounded performance.
It was a battle, proper battle.
But it was still a rounded performance. The early.
To me, I thought the Bulls, the first half especially, Edinburgh was they were controlling that game, and I thought the Bulls were going to lose. And this is after we coming off of a Stormers loss. I honestly thought that the Sharks were going to lose. So I thought all three South African teams were going to be out in the quarterfinals. And the Bulls, they weren't really fighting shots in the first half. They did obviously take the game. They did change the momentum of the game in the second half. But Willie Leroux, what a player. What a player. And even Keegan Johannes. Keegan Johannes also, he's obviously slotting in for Johan Goosen, who's injured. But I think he played brilliantly. Cameron Hanekom was just something else. He always is. He's such a brilliant player. Cameron Hanekom, he had the most successful carries for the Bulls. He beat most defenders beaten, most offloads, most tackles for the Bulls. Even Marco van Staden also looked very good. He came on for someone came off. I can't remember who it was. Cameron Hanekom went off for a blood injury, and then Marco van Staden slotted in for a few minutes in the first half. And I actually thought that Marco van Staden looked brutal. Brutal. But yeah, it's going to be a massive battle next weekend. The Bulls versus the Sharks. It's going to be very, very exciting to watch. But I think the Bulls, with the performance they had against Edinburgh, even though it was well-rounded, as you say, they're not beating a Leinster or a Glasgow, especially not if it's away. The Bulls
need all the happy gods on their side this coming weekend for them to face Glasgow at home. And they obviously would have analysed that match already. Glasgow's scrum is very, very weak. But I'm also looking, and I want to reiterate this, for me, probably one of the standout players when it comes to the Bulls game, except for the obvious, Cameron Hanekom that we've expected from. But all of a sudden, and this is purely my opinion, all of a sudden David Kriel is looking like a matured outside centre. He's looking like an outside centre that would be able to slot in with the potential Damien Dialindi. You're looking at maybe with Andre Esterhuizen, looking at that, and that opens another bunch of opportunities for you, like we mentioned earlier, where it would be a situation of he's able to be he's a renowned goal kicker. So it means that you don't have to shift your whole team to have a goal kicker on the field. You can start with Andre Pollard or whatever, and the minute that gets cut down or whatever, you've got a center. You can bring up a guy like Marnie or whatever. And I believe David Kriel had the most meters gained with ball in hand in that match as well. And looking at that, all of a sudden he is, out and out. All of a sudden, he's looking like a very strong contender for that number 13 green and gold. And at the moment, I would not be upset if he is chosen in that position. Considering he's 26, he's at that age. Where he's going to be perfect for the next World Cup. Give him the caps now, get him into that position. It gives you a backup kicker. It gives you probably one of the best outside centers that we've currently got in South Africa, and available to us. Obviously, I'm saying this, but clearly Rassi's also been thinking about, obviously watching the same stuff we are. So it is interesting, and it's gonna be good for the game. when you look at it, Keegan Johannes, obviously we mentioned the battle at number 10. He's already been competing again against Johan Goosen, and from next season he's going to be competing in that position for against Andre. But he should not see that as a bad thing. He should see that as an opportunity. You're probably going to compete, two-time winning South African fly-off that's going to be in the same locker room as you. You need to use that. Keegan Johannes is young. Use this time with Andre, and after that, I mean, what more can you ask for? It's the same. It's the same that Andre did when he was playing alongside Morné Steyn. You need to use things like that. Getting to Edinburgh, I want to give them a lot of credit. Coming to Loftus, scoring 33 points. They pitched up. They pitched up for that. Wes Goosen had a phenomenal game.
Yes, he looked good.
Yeah, he looked good, and in general, Edinburgh didn't look bad. They just weren't the best team on the day. I mean, like we mentioned in the stats, they matched the Bulls pretty much on every single stat. So, well done to Edinburgh, and this is what we want to see in rugby, is that 80-minute battle, going from minute 1, all the way to the end of the thing. I just want to reiterate one thing. I feel that the Sebastian de Klerk yellow card, although I understand how they got to that.
Where was he supposed to go?
Yeah, there was nowhere for him to go. And then to say, but he jumped late and whatnot. What they need to understand is they played in slow motion. So it looks like that guy had, 4 minutes to react. He didn't, Darcy Graham running straight at you, doing a chip kick, probably two of the faster men in world rugby. If you look at the real speed of that thing, that all happened in half a second. It wasn't like this big margin. And, a lot of the times slow motions makes it look a lot worse than it actually is. And it generally riles up the crowd. I think it was a bit extreme for them to get into that, because that yellow card also, led to the Wes Goosen try 2 minutes later. But in general, well done to the Bulls. Good luck this week. This coming weekend, we'll discuss what we think you're going to do later in the week, and then moving on. Now, in honesty, I didn't get around to watch this due to family responsibility and stuff. So I think you should take the lead on it. I did watch the highlights.
I thought, this was one of the games we thought was going to be just a whitewash. Leinster, the almighty Leinster, going against Scarlets. The number one team in the top 8 against the last team in the top 8. And Scarlets came to play. They honestly went for it. Leinster, look, they were looking rusty. They're still a good team, and they still looked good. Just not the Leinster that we know. They obviously have a lot of things that they need to work on. If they play like this next weekend against Glasgow is smashing them. But the Scarlets came. A lot of lucky tries. Blair Murray looked very, very good. There was, I think, was his second try or their second try. In the 40th minute, Leinster were under the Scarlets try line. It looked like it was sure that they were going to score and put the game away. And then by some luck, they turned, or there was a missed pass, and I think it was Ellis Mee that kicked the ball downfield. Murray and me chased, and Murray actually just scored the try, and there we go. The game was on. Sad that the Scarlets are out. But if it's a team that's going to knock you out, why not the best team in the league, which is Leinster? And I think they can take a lot away from that performance and be proud of that performance. They just never went away. But Leinster have to work on a lot of things. Sam Prendergast was very bad. I don't know.
But we can't say that, right? Because he is the guy that's supposed to take over from Johnny Sexton. Yeah, so we can't say he's bad because
no.
Look, like I said, I didn't watch the full game because of such circumstances. I do feel, looking at it, there was a yellow card in the 55th minute for Alec Hepburn, and in the 59th minute, Hugo Keenan scored the try. And then there was Vaya Fafita that got his yellow card in the 72nd minute, and so they finished the game off with only 14 players on the field, so they need to look at that, discipline issues probably cost them, because if you take the European try was not converted, but you take that away, then it's 28-21.
Yeah.
Because the try was scored shortly after the yellow card, and then the yellow card where you finish the game off with only 14 players. That last 8 minutes, is going to be brutal. So if you actually go and break it then down into those kind of sections. It was the one try that cost them, and then obviously if you look at the statistics, penalties conceded was probably the other thing that got to them, because there were 2 penalties between them, but 2 penalties is extra 6 points. So all of a sudden, if you take that into account, the game's pretty much a draw, and I feel that Leinster probably used their opportunities better, especially when it came to the penalties. Prendergast converted 3 penalties, and that's 9 points.
Yeah.
So overall, we can say Leinster looked rusty and whatnot. At the end of the day, I'm coming back to the 1 point mentality again. If you start the season and you win every single game by 1 point, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you're going to be the team that lifts the trophy.
Yeah.
So yeah, was it a good game? Yeah, I'm glad to see Leinster there. They are deserved team to obviously be in the semi-finals, and looking at the teams that went through to the semi-finals, and not saying the other teams were not deserved. It is not a surprise of the teams that went through. It has been the on-form teams, because the top 4 teams, the teams that ended top 4 are the teams that ended up going through to the semi-finals.
It looked good for me as well was Marnus van der Merwe. I mean, Marnus van der Merwe was that one shocker that got called up by Erasmus, and I never understood. I didn't even know who he was before that, but he actually looked very good when he came up. Marnus van der Merwe, a few crucial turnovers.
Yeah, ex Cheetah player, played under Rassie at the Cheetahs probably.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, so Rassie tends to be loyal. When it comes to that, and he is a hooker. So at the moment, I feel we're short-staffed on hookers, on proper hookers. Bongi's reaching, those short legs of Bongi is getting very long at the moment. And I don't feel that the hookers. We're looking at the replacement hookers that we have. Yes, we've got, the 2 hookers at the Bulls. But that's pretty much that. I don't feel that the other hookers that we've got are on par at all. Marnus van der Merwe, though, played for the Free State from 2017, played for the Pumas from 2010. So he's been around the hard teams in South African rugby. Went to the Scarlets only now in 2024. Last year in 2024, and he's a hooker. He's 28 years old. Potential is there for him to be, the next, the replacement that we might need, and that's, I feel, that's where South African rugby is now, and where us is moving forward. So having these people as backups and as opportunities and whatnot does help, because it means you've got that extra guy that in a difficult situation you can rely on, and he's got just over 50 caps under his name, and just over that 50 caps as a hooker, he scored 80 points. So
I wouldn't choose him though. If I was Russ, I wouldn't like. I'm not. He had a brilliant game, and I'm sure he's a brilliant player. I have to disagree with. I think that we have a lot of good hookers, and I just don't think that that maybe it might be bias of me. Maybe I don't see him enough playing because he plays for a foreign team. But I don't know. I think guys like Johan Grobler, even man, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who plays. I know he plays loosehead now, but I think he's a brilliant player that can slot to hooker. He actually started with the Bulls as hooker. So I don't know. I just don't think Marnus van der Merwe would be on my radar. I'm surprised that he's on Rassi's radar, but Rassi knows best. So yeah.
Yeah. So, any case, moving on to the last game, I'll introduce the thing as it's your team. Probably the game that was the most confusing. And whatnot, because I remember I was sitting, at the tail end of that match, and I got the messages from you going like, I don't understand what's happening now. What the fuck is this? And I was just sitting there. Now, quickly I had to do some history. So the Sharks game's the third time that it did go into a penalty shootout, for lack of a better term.
It's the first time I've ever seen it.
Yeah. So the first one, as I mentioned yesterday, was where Leicester Tigers won, and it did work a bit differently. Then they changed it to the way it is now.
Yeah.
So previously you had to nominate 5 people. Those 5 people went and kicked, and the other team nominated 5 people. They went and kicked, much like it would have worked in a soccer match.
Yeah.
And if they still level, then the other players come in and they each take a kick until somebody misses. Okay. This for me, I feel it was very, very unique. The Durban crowd cheering, and I could see on a lot of their faces there was no clue of what was going.
But what was even me, on. I was so. Yeah. But
look, they made it unique.
What a game then.
We have to look at it. I mean, if you go back and you look at the one that happened in 2022, ironically, Munster was involved in that as well, against Toulouse. They lost there, and that was a battle of the nines, kicking from the center, where it was Andy Murray kicking against Antoine Dupont. So interesting thing. We'll post the link, in the comments as well, for the people that want to go look at the previous two. Previous 2 times that this did happen. It is a very, 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 very unique scenario. Like I mentioned, it's happened 3 times, But let's break this down for a second, and I'll go first because I'm sure you've got a lot more to say about this match than I do. The Sharks seem to, if the Sharks stop playing against themselves and actually only play against the opposition, because it feels to me like the Sharks are playing against 30 people on the field. They're playing against 15 versions of themselves, and then they're playing against the 15 players of the other team. I mean, we look at it, 201 passes and 612 meters gained, and you level the score after 80 minutes. I couldn't understand that. Tackles made 103. You're looking at that territory, you had 60% of the possession, you had 66% of the territory. You basically didn't lose a line out. You basically didn't lose a scrum.
Yeah, the scrums are good.
There were no yellow cards or red cards. You conceded virtually no penalties. You conceded 6 penalties to the 14 of Munster, and you went to an overtime draw and had to go into a penalty shootout. I mean, you literally did 3 times the amount of meters gained compared to Munster, and you still went to a draw. It's honestly, the Sharks are just that team that, for me at the moment, they're the Hogwarts team for me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like watching Harry Potter. You don't fully understand. Some magic happens, but you don't have an idea who's doing it or where it comes from, I don't know what to say.
Anyone that watches the show knows how I feel about the Sharks. I bash them every single weekend. But I've decided, fuck it. They're winning. So if you look at it, before the game started, in the build-up to the game, they asked John Plumtree, is he going to change the way they play? Obviously, getting a lot of flack because he's got so many Springboks and they're not winning. And he said, you know what? They don't really give a shit how they win. They just want to win. And it's sort of been, if you look at with that mentality, it's sort of what's been happening this whole season for them. There's so many games where you felt they should have lost that game, and they just somewhere just win it. Against the Bulls they won. Obviously they had that one loss against Leinster as B team, but other than that, they've just been winning games that you honestly think they should have been losing. And look, this was by no means a beautiful looking game. Neither teams are perfect, but it was the most entertaining game of the weekend for me. I think guys like Ethan Hooker is coming through solidly. I mean, he had that one beautiful try. What a player. Makazole Mapimpi at his age, still looking like a fucking beast. Eben Etzebeth just not laying down. There was a few individual players that really stood out for me. Obviously, a lot of them that aren't as hard as they used to be, or just aren't as good as they should be, I think. But I mean, what a game! It's like they sort of have this thing in their mind, like they're gonna win. It's like trust in themselves almost.
Yeah, what are they trusting themselves to take the hardest way to play a quarterfinal, go into that? So I can imagine all of them sitting there together and Eben going like, guys, I feel I've never seen a penalty shootout in rugby. Let's play a draw. We keep it to a draw for the extra time, for that extra 20 minutes. We all make sure that we tear all our hamstring, gets all the cramps and stuff we can get. And then just before the end, we're gonna tell Mapimpi to get off the field, bring up Bradley Davids so that he can.
But you see, the Sharks were prepped for this. Plumtree was prepped for this.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like
because you look at it, Neil Powell walks down with the sheet and with a paper that he must have printed out somewhere with the post on them, and they're planning something, I don't know. And when Bradley Davids came on, I thought to myself, I was even telling my wife, how stupid is he? Because it was like 2 minutes left before the end of extra time. So I said to him, how stupid can he be taking Bradley Davids out, taking Mapimpi out and bringing Bradley Davids in? I mean, Mapimpi is having a phenomenal game, why are you taking him out? And then when it went into the kickoff, I realized this is why. And what a champ Bradley Davids was.
At that young age to step up under that pressure,
Yeah.
Look, the thing is this, coming back to that, I'm going to just mention this. Vincent Achuka, useless player. And he showed it in the game. What I am going to say, Eben is probably arguably the only G in world rugby.
Yeah.
He's the gangster. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, you mentioned Ethan Hooker, but what I wanna the player that I've been very critical about, and he's moving to my team next season. Okay.
Yeah. Mtutuko
Mkunu, right? How has he developed this season?
Maybe because he knows he's leaving.
Into a ball carrier, and it's just like he's giving. That last 10 minutes, I thought this guy was playing center because he was just, hitting the gaps like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
We reiterated a point on our build up to this quarterfinals, and the one thing we reiterated on was the fact that a lot of people are going Springbok Leiden Sharks team and whatnot. What people tend to forget is if you go through the Springbok Leiden Sharks team, Oxenche, Bongiam, Benambi, Vincent Koch, all starting. Okay, they are at the tail end of retirement. Okay, Eben Etzebeth, he doesn't have another 40 seasons left in him. You're looking, Siao Kulisi, he's getting closer to retirement. Makazole Mapimpi, any other wing that has achieved what he has achieved would have probably retired already.
Yeah.
You're looking at Lucanio Am. Lucanio Am is also on the tail end, the tail end of retirement. Francois Venter, another Springbok. Other people would have probably retired. I don't think Francois Venter is in the best form. but he hasn't really let you guys down when he has come onto the field, you know. So you're looking at Springbok Leiden and whatnot, but considering a lot of them on you know, at the edge of the, that really like that the retirement paper is just waiting to be signed kind of deal. And people tend to forget that, you know. People still look at these people like these players as the same players that played the World Cup in 2019, and they're not. They're bullies now. They don't have another 20 seasons in them. They're not going to be around for, you know, the chances are good that this season, next season, maybe the season after that is the last time we're going to hear commentators say names like Ombunambi, names like Koch, names like Kulisi, you know, looking at stuff like that, names like Lucanio Mapimpi, Francois Venter. We're getting to a point where these are going to become, you know, they've become household names for us all now. Yeah. And in the next two or three seasons, you're not going to hear those names anymore. No. And people forget that, you know. Sharks made it very hard for themselves. That's all I'm going to say.
Mans are on the same boat. They also had like 3 players that are Conor Murray, Peter Manny, a few of them that are literally retiring after this season. Well, after this game, you know. But anyways, I don't know. I'm going to call it now. I think Sharks go for it, go all the way, and I can get all the hate for what I've called it before the season, and I'm about to call it now. I think if the Sharks just win and find a way to keep on winning, they can do it, you know. So if Glasgow, if they beat the Bulls away, which they have done before in this season, and Glasgow beat Leinster, which is very possible. You know, we know how Leinster can be in knockout games. The Sharks play Glasgow at home. So let's see. There's a very big probability they make it. And you know, I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for saying that, but you know, we'll talk again after the season. But let's get to the controversy now. So there was obviously that one part where when they went for the penalty shootout, Jane Hendricks and Crowley were giving it to each other. You know, Crowley swearing everyone off. Okay, well, it's, in all fairness, Jaden was told to stop by the ref first. I don't know. We obviously don't know what he was saying, what he was doing. They were having some beef on the field. Jaden then goes down, you know, and he gets a cramp. So I'll put the picture up now. You know, there you can have a look at it. I mean, his calf muscle literally looks like it wants to jump out of his fucking leg. He's been playing 100 minutes of rugby. You know, you can't really blame him. Crowley thinks he's faking it, and Crowley goes full on tantrum, you know, starts shouting at I don't know if it's a medical staff. People say it's Plumtree. It's definitely not Plumtree. One of the Sharks guys there. And Jaden winks at Crowley, which I thought was unbelievably funny, you know. And as I'm going, you know, on Twitter and that afterwards, I see that the Northern Hemisphere fan base are having an absolute meltdown because of this, and saying it's against the spirit of the game, and saying that it's unsportsmanlike. And I'm trying to figure out what he did wrong. You know, are they upset with the fact that he was winking? You know, which is a bit petty if you ask me. If it is that. Or you're upset at the fact that he cramped up, you know? Did he think they faked it? Because if you look at the picture, you can see, I mean, he's got a tennis ball inside there. You know, and he just played 100 minutes of rugby, like we said. And what is the unsportsmanlike? You know, what is unsportsmanlike about
it? You
know,
I mean, we're always gonna have this. You know, the Irish sides. I get it. We've got this thing with each other. You know, so I'm just gonna say this then. I'm going to start a new post now on Twitter. I'm upset because the Irish or the Munster lock went down before the last scrum because he had a cramp. You know, it was against the spirit of the game. Because if the Sharks took that scrum 4 seconds earlier, they would have scored a try. You know, and much like that. If Jaden Hendricks didn't do this, Crowley would have probably slotted the second kick. You know,
he did
exactly my point. So it had zero effect on anything that was happening. You know, it's just, you know, it is what it is. Or to the Irish fans,
in their minds, what do they think is his tactic here? You know, so let's say he was faking it. For what reason? It's not like there's a shot clock ticking off, or he's trying to burn through time. I mean,
And even if there was a shot, like the ref told Crowley that, listen, I'm going to give you as much time as you need, you know.
And he has an absolute tantrum about it.
Yeah, you know, it was that, you know, it was like watching a 2-year-old kid, you know, not getting his way.
I just don't understand why Jaden's getting so much hate. When the last weekend the Champions Cup final and Bordeaux beat Northampton. Everywhere you're seeing pictures of the Bordeaux Jelly Bear and all of them. You know, obviously mocking Pollock with his signature. You know what I'm saying? And it feels like that's not even getting as much hate as Jaden Henry said. Which was very funny to me, winking at Jack Crowley. It's unbelievably stupid. I don't understand.
You're not allowed to do that, you know. You're not allowed to do that to a second-tier flyer from Ireland, you know. So congratulations to the Irish teams. You've got one team in the semi-finals, you know. Munster didn't smoke the pipe. In our defence, this is the second time Munster has been part of a penalty shootout in the last 3 years, and obviously this is their weakness, you know. They can't do it, you know. And Jack Crowley, I mean, really, boy, it was a wink, man. He didn't ask you for your number. Relax. He didn't ask you to date your sister, you know. It was a good game. You guys were lucky to be in the game because the Sharks play against themselves as well, you know, based on 612 meters gained. You guys should have been behind how far by the end of it, you know. And you still slotted your 2 kicks. I mean, it was your other kicker, your second kicker, that missed his first kick, which he shouldn't have missed.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe take some tips from our replacement that came on. And
Bradley Davids.
Yeah, Bradley Davids. Take some tips from him, you know, keep your composure and stuff, not because your spectacle after the kick is exactly what we've in our older episodes before I calmed down that we said was the problem with Irish rugby, you know. But congratulations to all the teams that win, and for what it is with Munster, you were part of a spectacle that we generally don't see in our lifetimes, you know, and you guys did well, you know. You kept the team that should have been overwhelming you at bay. You went to the penalty shootout, and that is what it was. It was a shootout, and you lost it, you know. Take pride in it, because a couple of weeks ago you weren't even in the top 8, you know. So
100%.
I mean, take pride in that. That all the teams that pitched up this weekend that play rugby, you know. It was entertaining matches. It was hard-fought matches. I mean, you know, players going on there and basically playing for that last and playing 60 minutes non-stop, because there was only a minute break after the end of the match, and there was only a minute break between the two overtime halves, you know. So playing 60 minutes non-stop in Durban, you know, on sea level, you know, on altitude and whatnot, it's a very, very tall order, you know, and you could see it with the cramping, you could see it with the energy levels and whatnot, you know. So take it on the chin. You have been a previous champion. Just act like a previous champion. Don't act like a lunatic and whatnot.
Mary's shouting at someone that's getting a cramp on the floor. It's ridiculous. That's unsportsmanlike, if you ask me.
Yeah, you know, it's against the spirit of the game. You know, maybe it's a case of there's too much spirits in Ireland. Any case, no, we're not going to start that. But congratulations to all the teams that did win. You all messed up my Super Brew completely.
I didn't even check the Super Brew.
Yeah, don't check it. It's not important. Congrats to all the teams. And then we'll see you guys again on Thursday for our build up. For our build-up to the semi-finals, which is on the 7th of June. So we'll see you guys then. 2 big games. It's going to be a North-South final.
Like
inevitably.
Every other season.
Yes. And basically the teams that finished 1 to 4 is the teams that are in the semi-final. And ironically, if they played it according to the log standings, if only the top 4 went through, the semi-finals would have looked exactly the same, because it would have been 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. So I'm just saying, you know, sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to work out.
Yeah.
But everybody
loves narrative.
Yeah. Everybody be safe. Have a good Sunday further, or in a good weekend. A good week coming up. And Brenty, I'll see you again on Thursday.
Cheers,
All right.
boys.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.